Welcome, welcome, everyone. Roots of Chaos and Catastrophe. Welcome to the discussion of Al Jazeera's documentary film, Gaza, 60-Minute Warning. We will begin by acknowledging that we gather on the national land of the First Peoples of Seattle, the Duwamish people, who are still here. And we honor with gratitude the land itself and the life of all the Coast Salish tribes. Our films this year are focusing on roots or elements that have shaped the present genocide in Gaza and the violence in the West Bank of Palestine. We first looked at the root the settlers planted and the way in which the role they played helped in the growth of apartheid. In that story, we encountered some of the same sense of entitlement that our own ancestors in this country must have felt. Our second film, The Lobby, USA, and I hope you've been able to view the other three films about AIPAC because they are really important for getting a grasp of how pervasive and how powerful that lobby is. And it is available for you to see on Al Jazeera YouTube at your leisure anytime. So I recommend parts 1, 3, and 4, which we did not show last week. We discovered in that film how and why the lobby has grown into one of the most powerful influencers on our Congress and why our nation supports Israel, right or wrong. Now we're devastated by what's happening in Gaza today. Though what has been happening, it has been going on for decades. Our film's story unfolded in 2021, but it goes much further back and is different only in degree. It has our attention now. Will we get over this as quickly as we did Operation Cast Lead, or the Great March, where so many lost limbs and lives? It's a question. After our speaker has shared her experiences of this film and Gaza and its people, we will have time for questions and comments. Richard Gilbert will let you know how to signal that you wish to be heard. So please keep your questions and comments to a sentence or two if possible, and then everyone will be able to be heard. So today, we are most fortunate to have with us Jerry Haynes, who has brought such compelling perspectives to us in the past. Jerry is a palliative care consultant and a grief and bereavement educator. She is past president and sometimes a board member of Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility. For many years, she has organized delegations to the Middle East, over 10 of them medical delegations to take supplies and serve in Gaza. She has been there over 35 times. She has worked with Gaza mental health and will share with us how the people there endure. Jerry, a most warm welcome to you once again.
Thank you.
Where would you like to begin?
Well, I'll just say to you that the Physicians for Social Responsibility started sponsoring trips to the Middle East in 1992, and we made our first trip in 1993. So we've been there over and over and over and over again. And we went in the first place because we were concerned about the development of nuclear weapons, which is sort of a funny place that we are right now, because we are again facing the danger of nuclear weapons with what's going on between Israel and Iran. But first, I want to talk about, we met wonderful people. We went into Gaza, we went to Israel, we've been to Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and 5 times into Iraq. And everywhere we've been, we have been greeted with kindness and people who are brilliant and wanting to do well in the world. I went there with a prejudice the first time, and I was thrilled actually to have my prejudice melted away by the loving kindness of the people there. My husband and I now have 4 godchildren who live in Bethlehem or lived in Bethlehem. So we've become very close to the people there. And this past weekend, we had a guest from Gaza who was one of the people who was able to leave because he had a dual passport. And he had some things to tell us about his experience of being in Gaza for 6 weeks during this war. People of Gaza have roots back to at least the Ottomans, and that's probably about a third of the people who live there now. The rest of them are refugees, or called refugees, from the 1948 division when Israel came in and declared itself a state, and people were moved out of their homes, and many of them were moved into Gaza. That was about the same time then that UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Works Agency, was developed to help all those people who were turned into refugees. And now that the United States is no longer supporting UNRWA in Gaza, I'll talk a little bit about how we can kind of circumvent that. Gaza is a beautiful place. It's about 25 miles long, about the length of Lake Washington for those of you who are here locally, 3 to 7 miles wide, 141 square miles. And by some estimates, 2.1, by some estimates, 2.3 million people lived there until this current war went on. We took medical delegations into Gaza over and over and over again, and were asked by the head of the Gaza Community Mental Health Program to bring in specialists who could provide education for people who were not able to get out because of the siege to further their education. So again, we have been in Gaza many times after each of the primary wars, and certainly after 2014, where my husband made a nice little video to describe what was going on. At the time, we thought that the devastation we saw from the 2014 war was probably the worst thing that we would ever see. Never did we think that we might not even have a Gaza to go back to, as there is now. What happened in 2021, which is well documented in this Al Jazeera movie, is a hint of what has happened in the last little bit. In 2021, the devastation of those buildings, watching them be blown apart, is pretty horrendous. But now we are seeing buildings blown apart every day. I hear every day from young people in Gaza, and most days from friends in Israel, who are telling me that they want this to stop. And they're also telling me that the news coming into Israel about what's going on has been stifled, so that many Israelis don't know what's happening just across the line in Gaza, which is in and of itself a frightening thing. Gaza, being placed right on the Mediterranean, has the potential to be a very wealthy spot. It could be a tourist haven, has beautiful beaches. There's a natural gas pool down in the southern part of Gaza worth untold millions of dollars, and it is part of the strife for trying to figure out who's going to claim that 3 billion gallon pool of natural gas. There are lots of things that our press doesn't deal with very forthrightly about why this conflict exists between Israel and Hamas. Hamas was started probably in about 1987 and supported by Israel in the development of Hamas, because the Israelis apparently felt that if they supported an organization that would be in competition with the Palestinian Authority and Fatah and Yasser Arafat, that maybe there wouldn't be a problem with Israel maintaining dominance. That's proved to be an ongoing problem, but in fact, the support for Hamas has been sort of a backdoor problem that is ongoing and is probably right now coming back to haunt Mr. Netanyahu, because so much money has been given to Hamas through money from Qatar, through unknown sources. But the idea is to support Hamas enough that Hamas and the Palestinian Authority won't make a solid footing, even though they have a contract, and come together to make a plan for a two-state solution that would work. And so I will read you in a minute some of the things that have been quoted from Netanyahu. But the 2021 disaster, again, is a hint of what's happening right now. Ellen Cantarow in The Nation magazine wrote, "Words can't express the horrors of Israel's genocide in Gaza." Again, in The Nation, to actually feel the nightmare, you would have to be there under the bombs, fleeing with Palestinians desperately seeking a safe place that doesn't exist, seeing building after building destroyed, treading through blood in one of the very few only partially standing hospitals, and witnessing children and other patients sprawled on hospital floors, limbs amputated without anesthesia, Israel having blocked medical supplies. She quotes former UN Assistant General, Secretary General for Human Rights, Andrew Gilmore, who says, "We are witnessing the highest kill rate of any military since the Rwandan genocide of 1994. And again, I hear every day from friends in Gaza, and their words are haunting. They talk about people sleeping in cold tents, many without floors, radically insufficient food and water, no medicines, no protection from infections. They send me photos of where they live, and it truly is horrifying. And part of what's horrifying is that the Gaza that I know and have walked through and loved and worked in is gone. Whole streets are just completely obliterated. Schools are crushed. Education, which is a very high priority for Gazans, has been suspended in its organized way. Brilliant people there are holding classes and doing physical activities for children to kind of keep their spirits going, but they're hungry children. And when you see the pictures of them dancing, you see very thin and pale children who have not had enough food. So many people have been killed or injured. So many people are still missing under the rubble. Today, one report says 33,899 people killed. I've heard an even higher estimate. Of these, 13,000 are children and 8,000 are women. 76,664 injured and 8,000 still missing under the rubble. Most days I hear from Akram al-Satari. Akram is a Gaza journalist, and you may have seen him because Amy Goodman has interviewed him a number of times on Democracy Now! He's also been on CNN. Recently, he wrote some words about a friend of his who was found under the rubble, and he gave me permission to read these words to you. After a long embrace that lasted for nearly 3 months, civil defense crews found the body of a childhood and lifelong friend, Anwar Khalafallah, embracing his mother in a long, pure, righteous, and beautiful embrace, like the beauty of Anwar, who only knew purity and innocence. War spread death, but it did not kill love. It spread fear, but it did not prevent defiance. It spread destruction, but it did not destroy the souls who live on trust and expect goodness. Those words define the courage of Gaza. And I ask that you watch Democracy Now! And meet Akram. He's just a lovely human being. And he's talking about his friend found in the rubble. We saw rubble in the film, but the rubble in that film is just a hint of what's going on now. And that rubble has been found to have toxic substances. They think there are approximately already 15 million tons of debris now littering the Gaza Strip. There's nowhere to put that debris. There's absolutely nowhere to put it. And it's roughly 4 times that of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Given their ultra-dense building environment and Israel's extensive bombing in residential areas, 2 likely public health threats are aerosolized concrete and asbestos, toxic materials that pose significant risks, long-term risks to the residents of Gaza. Cleaning that up will be onerous, and the duration of toxicity in the environment is totally unknown. There's pulverization of concrete, insulation, and other materials. The dust and ash are toxic. In the Jabalia refugee camp, known to contain asbestos, there's been repeated battering. Now, after the 2000 war in Iraq, the United States and other places did extensive research on what the debris held, and we found that there was even radioactivity, some radioactivity, and a lot of toxicity in the debris, and which led to cancers and very many childhood problems. We can expect some of that in Gaza long term. So we are going to have not just a rebuilding, but a re-examination of all the health in Gaza. It's a very, very difficult and long-term problem that will not be, if we look at the Holocaust and how long the Holocaust has plagued the world and plagued the Jewish people, it's hard to imagine that this time in Gaza won't plague us for at least that long, because we will have done something, supported something with our tax dollars that is hard to justify, maybe impossible to justify. And so who is Hamas? You know, what has Hamas become? We've met in person with Ismail Haniyeh on a number of occasions and found him to be kind and reasonable to talk to. And now he is the political leader living in Qatar and apparently not wanting to justify what's going on as it's going on. And then 3 of his sons were recently killed, as well as 3 of his grandchildren. Everyone in this picture is feeling disaster and destruction. The Israeli families who were destroyed in October, and all of these Gaza families who are never going to know a life that they had hoped to know. Many people hold Netanyahu responsible for supporting Hamas, as I told you. But he is also having a lot of people criticize him now. And supposedly he's concerned that if he steps down from office, that he will face political and judicial pressures that will put him in jail. So we don't know. Here's what he said in an earlier quote. Anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state has to support bolstering Hamas and transferring money to Hamas. This is part of our strategy to isolate the Palestinians in Gaza from the Palestinians in the West Bank. Between 2012 and 2018, Netanyahu gave approval to Qatar to give approximately $1 billion to Gaza, half of which went to Hamas, including their military wing. On May 5th, 2019, before that movie was made, Gershon Hacohen, an Israeli major general in reserve, said, "We need to tell the truth. Netanyahu's strategy is to prevent the option of two states. So he's turning Hamas into his closest partner. Openly, Hamas is an enemy. Covertly, it's an ally." Tal Schneider, an Israeli political commentator, wrote in October of 2023, after the Hamas attack on the Israelis, "Israel has allowed suitcases holding millions of Qatari cash to enter Gaza through its crossing since 2018 in order to maintain its fragile ceasefire with the Hamas rulers of the Strip. Most of the time, Israeli policy was to treat the Palestinian Authority as a burden and Hamas as an asset." And he writes, "Israel will survive Netanyahu's ruling. However, the damage that he has caused to the social and judicial fabric of Israel has been immense. After the most ruthless and indiscriminate bombing of civilians in recent times, all that is left of Gaza are terrified survivors, a ravaged land, and the devil's footprints." So what can we do? Your group is about to make a statement that I believe will be an incredibly important statement. And thank you for confronting AIPAC. And they believe, I think, to their core that they're doing the right thing. It's a sad thing to me that we can't find bridges to find common goals of peace and security. But it seems to be something that doesn't happen. But we have to keep trying to help keep people alive. Here in Seattle, the Salam Cultural Center in Seattle is having an auction this Saturday. Everything they raise will go to feed and provide care for Gaza. There are many, many GoFundMe asks. Some people believe that they are leery of them, but there are groups providing direct care, including UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, and including the American Friends Service Committee and many others. What we're doing as a group of people who has been in Gaza and know people that we know and love, we're wiring money directly to people that we know and love because they can still access their bank, and then they spread it out to one another to buy food. And these are people that, again, we've known for 10 or 20 and sometimes 30 years that we truly trust. We are trying as a group to find answers to this. As a group, our WPSR group would love to return to Gaza, but at this point, returning to Gaza is a place that's hardly there. And finding a way in and being useful doesn't seem very reasonable. So we're just trying to support them with funds. Planning for what happens next is complicated. We have to let our elected officials know what we want. We have to write notes. I write to Joe Biden every day. I'm not sure he's listening, but I think we just have to keep trying. We can't give up. That's what we have to do. I'd love for you to give me questions.
Yeah, so the way we will do questions, I think most people here have done this before, is you down in the bottom where it says reactions, you click on your reactions button, and then one of the choices is raise hand, or if you have your camera on, you can also like wave your hand and we'll probably see it. And I don't know how long we'll go. I guess it's partly up to Jerry, however many questions she wishes to take, but I'll open the floor to anyone who wants to ask anything.
Thank you. I would like to just make a comment about what you were talking about, the land I'm just wondering how on earth they will begin to restore the land, having the sewage and the devastation and the chemicals and so on. If there's a person that knows anything about that in this group, would you please, can they even begin? It will take 1,000 years or?
Ruth, one of the things that has been suggested is that some of the rubble will be bulldozed out into the Sinai Desert and buried under the sand. Another thing that has been suggested is that they'll build an island off the coast of Gaza with it. No one knows what in the world they will do with those millions and millions of pounds of concrete, but just to clear it away and then discover what remains of the earth is going to take time. And you have 2 million people plus waiting to figure out where they're going to live. It's a very major problem.
And sorry for butting in, but I mean, Netanyahu, this is Dave, Netanyahu has been public, right, and saying Israel definitely will not be doing any of the rebuilding.
They won't be doing what?
The Israeli government has made it clear publicly, as I think I've seen, that Israel will not participate in any rebuilding of Gaza ever for Gazans.
I hear that, but in the past, all the buildings they've knocked down, the supplies that come in for rebuilding, Israel benefits financially from all that stuff that comes in for the rebuilding. So I don't have a whole lot of faith in that idea that Israel will just go, oh, the money can come from someplace else and by some helicopter, you'll bring the goods in. No, they come in through Kerem Shalom. They come in through, other places, and money goes to Israel from that. And I'm not being sarcastic or anything. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, they'll find a way. Thank you. Yep.
I have an allergy.
Oh yeah,
Anything
so John Otto has his hand up. I'll ask him to unmute.
Yes, Jerry, I'm curious in your time that you spent there and what you know from the people you're talking to, what is the basic relationship between most of the people in Gaza and the government and military organization of Hamas? How do they look upon each other?
And that's pretty much on an individual basis. It's a really good question. And we've encountered this time after time as we've entered specifically since Hamas took over. When you check in through Eretz, you check with the Israelis, and then you go to the Palestinian Authority checkpoint, and then you go to the Hamas checkpoint. And Hamas is the ruler there. Hamas is the final one to let you in or not let you in. And they have a lot to say about it. Talking to the people, some of them are afraid of Hamas or were, who knows what's going on now, but some of them were afraid of Hamas. Some of them quietly acceded to what was happening with Hamas. We knew people who were at high-end government offices that obviously were hired by Hamas and had to just sort of follow the party line because that's where their paycheck came from. We also knew people who were still employed by the Palestinian Authority, and somehow for a number of years, they were able to get along. But there are a lot of people who would like Hamas to disappear because of the violence that has come upon the whole of the Gaza Strip. There are also people who think that Israel has put Gaza through enough that it's time that Israel was taught a lesson. And that means it's hard to say that nobody would think that when they have been through so much pain. So there isn't a one solid word answer to this. It is complex and changing on a day-by-day basis. If I am a person from Gaza and I'm blaming Hamas for bringing this terrible, horrible tragedy on, then I'm not going to be happy with Hamas. If I am a young man whose baby was just killed, maybe I'm going to say, give me my membership so I can go fight. You know, there's no easy answer to that one. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We have Steve Moen up next.
I thought the photojournalism in the movie was outstanding. And in the context of what's been going on, it occurred to me in watching the movie that we'd be a lot better off if we had some war crimes trials rather than the politicians try to think of excuses for not doing anything, which happened late this afternoon. The United States vetoed the request of Palestine to be admitted as a full member of the UN. And the American position apparently is there's better ways to do it and everything. So they get it's not ready yet. All that kind of baloney. Well, if you look at the characters that were in this movie, like that Israeli IDF guy, he's lying like a rug about either that or he's the most uninformed person that's ever been in an IDF uniform. And if you got him in a trial, or you got him in you got some of these other people with solid evidence of the totally unnecessarily, from a military standpoint, destruction of those 4 buildings and similar things that are going on today, they'd have it, if you could get a court with jurisdiction to listen to those cases, those would be winnable cases, I would think.
Well, you would hope so. You would hope they would be winnable. We can't know. The United States has certainly not, from my perspective, been very ethical about most of what's happened. And the standing up that we have done against honest jurisprudence is pretty horrifying. So I don't know, maybe that would work. It would be worth a try, right? I would hope.
We have Mary Newman up next.
Okay, well, I have 2 questions, actually. I don't know which one to take first. I appreciated the fact that in the film, they really were attempting to crack open the lie that the Hamas are hiding behind the civilians and they're using them as human shields. What I don't understand is why I haven't heard anyone comment on the fact that Hamas that if the people are allowed to resist at all, they certainly are a resistance force, they have to live somewhere. And Gaza is so dense in terms of its population, and the fact that it's been blockaded since 2006, and people can't get in or out by land, sea, or air. Of course, they're going to be embedded in the population. Where else would they be? So
Exactly.
I think that's a point that is often, I haven't heard anyone say that, but it does seem like that is a strong argument for the fact that what Israel does not want to allow any kind of resistance, whatever, in any form. And that would be a good point to refute some of this claim that they're hiding, because of course they're hiding. Where else would they go? They can't go by air or land or sea, so you go underground, right?
Well, you do, and some of those tunnels, of course, were created by Israel during the time that they had settlers in Gaza. So I mean, the tunnel we went through the tunnels that went between Gaza and Egypt, and they were pretty basic and a little bit scary because they were all mud. But hiding in plain sight is pretty much what you have to do there. There are teachers who, on one part of their life, are members of Hamas. There are teachers who are loyal to the Palestinian Authority. To divide that all up would be pretty hard, I think. Partly it's who pays your check.
My other question has to do more with the tactical response on the part of the United States. We have, the Episcopal Church is attempting to get some official policy into the national church by submitting resolutions, and it's a typically legislative process. And one of the resolutions we would like to see adopted has to do with the United States sanctioning military assistance to any country that commits war crimes. And we have in our own on our own book at least two laws that prohibit that. So we're not even following our own laws. But do you feel that that is a particularly effective approach to work to attempt to influence Congress through a large organization like the Episcopal Church?
I think it's
an issue.
I think it's a very important approach, Ruth, to think that this organization, with its ethical, moral, upright background, could make a statement to the US government that says this is irrefutable. We're breaking every ethical, moral rule that we have put on the books. We have to stop this. And, you know, we're going to fear the power of AIPAC because they have a lot of money and a lot of power politically. But let's start living what we claim to be our ethics.
Mm-hmm. And follow our own laws.
Yeah, right. Well, by the way, for
Okay.
sure.
Now we have Michael Clifford is got his hand up.
Actually, it's his wife, Penelope Gunterman. Yeah. Are we on screen?
I can barely see you.
Yeah, we're dark. There we are. Last week, Jonathan Cook had a really, I thought, superb post in which he identified 4 strategies that Israel has been using against the Palestinians. One of them, and I don't remember, I can't repeat all 4 of them right this minute, but one of them was attacking the media and basically preventing media from getting into Gaza, targeting journalists, Palestinian journalists, and so on. And I had just read that post when I watched Gaza 60 Minutes and noticed that all 4 of those towers that they targeted had significant media offices in them.
Right.
And I wondered if that was, my assumption was that was deliberate.
Of course.
Yes, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about the challenges for media given Israel's approach, and if you're hearing similar concerns about it from the folks in Gaza and what we might be able to do about it.
Well, there are various media outlets that are probably more honest than others. You know, listen to Al Jazeera and they're pretty straightforward. Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, I have a subscription to Haaretz because I love that they are brave enough to say things that are hard to say. Their reporter, Amira Haas, is I've met her a number of times, and she's one of the bravest female journalists I've ever met. So listen, if you have a chance to dial into some of that. Al Jazeera, of course, I think is the leader of all of that, but there are a number of places where people are very, very brave. Amy on Democracy Now! Is brave. And how we get those voices to be heard over and above some of the voices that are willing to cover things up, I'm not sure, except that I do think we can write to our Congress people and demand that we get better, honest coverage. And, you know, it's a funny thing. We took Jim McDermott with us to the Middle East one time.
Good.
And he said to me, it's the number of people that we hear from it's, if I hear from one, I go, yeah, you know, don't repeat that. But if I'm getting to there's 10 telling me the same thing, or 100 telling me the same thing, then all of a sudden I know I better listen. It's not just the voice, it's the money that comes with those voices, you know, that signals support for that elected official. And I think that what you are doing to get this voice, if you can say something about media output, would be a really, really strong thing to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see anybody else with their hand up. Ruth?
Yeah,
it away.
this thing about the media is, I don't know how to formulate the question, but I want to just say that we, you know, our country is a rogue nation. Israel is a rogue nation. Russia is a rogue nation. We have rogue nations all over the place. We have rogue individuals who are considering themselves above the law. And key in this whole thing is the wiping out of journalists, the getting rid of people who will tell the truth. And I don't know what it's going to take to get us back to a place where we could have some confidence. I mean, as you were saying, you know, Amy Goodman and Haaretz and Gideon Levy and 972, is it?
Right.
There are places, but you have to know where, you have to know about them to go to them. And most of the people I know who feel differently about this issue never come across it. Never come. They're like the people getting news in Israel, but just don't get the news, you know.
But it's a part of our responsibility, Ruth, isn't it? You know, I also subscribe to some very conservative Jewish sites, and because I need to know what
Yeah.
they're saying. And
Right.
part of that is really educating ourselves about the various points of view so that we can begin to be better educated ourselves, right?
Good. Yes, good. Very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you for letting me be here with you. I've always been impressed by what your group does.
Mary has her hand up, and David does as well. Hello.
Yeah, Richard, should I jump in? I have,
Yeah, John Otto also has his hand up, and then I guess we'll call it a night after these two.
Well, Mary Newman
Comments.
has her hand
Oh,
up as
oh.
well.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. Let's not cut it off too soon.
You can't be heard, Mary. Still muted.
I don't even see her.
Richard, can you unmute her?
Yeah, I
Mary,
didn't.
still muted.
Her
There you
hand was
go.
not up, so I didn't see her. Okay, she should be able to unmute now.
Unmute, Mary.
I cannot.
There
You
you
are.
You
are.
are.
Now
Hi,
I-
Mary.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I had my hand up, but I said Dave had his hand up before I did, so have Dave go first.
just, this is a little bit of a public service sort of a thing, is that, you know, and about what we can do. And Jerry knowing people, Jerry, I think, mentioned a fundraiser this Saturday, and I got word about it, and I don't know the people. I think, Jerry, you might know, is it Dr. Dorsey? Dortza or something, who's part of the fundraiser, and it's on, but I wanted to say, it's the one that's on this Saturday. It looks fun. It looks like it's worth going to this Saturday on right next to I-90, the Mercer Island Park and Ride, and it's at the Mercer Island Community Center at Saturday at 5:30. And it looks like you just show up with your checkbook, but you show up and there's dinner and live music.
Yeah, but you have to register for it.
I think
Register through the Salam. We'll be out of town, but you register. Rita Zaweda is the head of the Salam Cultural Museum and the Salam Medical. If you go to scm.org, I think you'll find it. And if you can't, then email me and I'll send it to you. And I'm at iggydog, IGGYDOG at AOL.com. And I will send you the link to that because you do need to register for it. But I think it's going to be a really good event. The man from Gaza that came to see us this last weekend brought a lot of pictures that were drawn by children in Gaza about their experience. And those pictures are going to be up for sale. And if you want one and you don't get one on Saturday, I have a bunch more here. So some of these pictures are just so stunning, you can hardly stop looking at them. But Salam Cultural Museum.
And just another, and Mary Newman, I think, probably got an email I circulated among some people today, is that event, Jerry, for some reason is situated right near a yeshiva, right near a synagogue, and in a community which supports the IDF, the Jewish National Fund, and Holocaust memorials. And it's I think going there just to show solidarity, just get yourself there Saturday at 5:30 sounds like a good thing to me. But
and if you haven't met Rita Zaweda has been helping refugees, and she's set up hospitals in Jordan. She's just an angel on the earth, and every dime she gets goes to help people. And so if you haven't met her, just do yourself the favor of meeting her because she is somebody wonderful. Okay, thank you for bringing it up.
She is a powerhouse, and it's Dr. Omar Dorzi, D-O-R-Z-I.
Oh, yes.
You know him? He is-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we still have John Otto, who is unmuted.
Did Mary get to ask her?
Oh, I didn't get to ask my question though. Can I?
Yes, please do.
Oh, okay. It's a question for Jerry. Jerry, we haven't heard much about the delivery of humanitarian aid since World Central Kitchen left, and UNRWA is being restricted, and Doctors Without Borders say they can't get supplies. Is there at this moment, even though the United States has said we will really want you to open up Eretz and any other crossing, has that happened, or is aid still being restricted as we speak?
The numbers are thank you, Mary. The numbers are telling us that there are maybe up to 218 trucks going in per day. But I mean, that's not 500, which is what they need, 500, and probably now they need 1,000 per day.
Yeah.
But it's more than the 18 that they got for a while. So there is some humanitarian aid going in, and some of it's actually going in through the top, through Gaza City. And I guess that some of it is being put through by Jordan. We'll see.
Is that, do you think, the result of pressure from the United States?
I think partially, yeah. I'm not going to give us a whole lot of credit.
No, but a little bit.
Sorry.
But it
Yeah,
is
no, but anything that we can push, I'll be happy about. Thanks, Mary. And
Okay, did John Otto still have a comment?
Yes, our Episcopal Bishops Committee, one of the concerns we have is having some communication with the Jewish community in the Seattle area.
good.
I recently went to the Egyptian theater where one of the I forgot which synagogue, but the one synagogue that's very supportive of the Palestinian cause showed the film Israelism that illustrated how many or most Jewish people were educated about Israel as part of their synagogue upbringing. And it was full of people, 30, middle 30s and under. But I'm very concerned about I don't think most of these young people go to synagogue, but I'm very concerned about the people who do, because I have the impression that many of them think that those of us who support the Palestinian cause, if we're not anti-Semitic, we're anti-Israeli. And I think most of us are saying there's wonderful things about the country of Israel, but that what they're doing now is self-destructive. And our support for Palestine includes changing what Israel is doing so that it can survive. But how we reach out and communicate or meet with synagogue people is our question. And I'm not sure how open they are to it. With your contacts, what would you think?
Well, first of all, I think that's a really important idea. And I'm a member of Jewish Voice for Peace because I have been really impressed by some of the things they do. And I've supported the New Israel Fund. Do you know about them?
Yeah.
They have made some important statements about this. And I guess I would, if I didn't know someone directly in a synagogue, I would reach out to maybe Dan Sokach and say, because he's from the West Coast, maybe he would know somebody through the New Israel Fund who would bridge this. I think that's one of the major tasks and obligations that we have, is to make those bridges with our Jewish brothers and sisters. And as I mentioned when we first started, I'm in touch with Israeli friends, and oh my gosh, some of them are in terrible pain because of what's happening, and many of them are working very hard. There's an American Jewish woman who runs an organization called Gisha, which has helped us across the crossing over and over again. And I heard from her just the day before yesterday. It's a tough time for them to be able to make headway with their government, but they would love to hear that there are Americans who support the bridge building. And that's, you know, we look for common values when we do conflict resolution. And the common values that we share with a lot of those people in the synagogues are pretty deep and wide. So I really congratulate you for that idea. Keep going.
I've noted that the synagogues that seem to have even raised the issue among themselves are the synagogues that have women rabbis.
Oh.
Are you familiar with any of them that might be open to having a dialogue?
I'm not, but I certainly, if from your position, I encourage you to call them up, you know, because you have nothing to lose and everything to gain to do that. I really congratulate you for doing that.
Thank you.
All right. Was there anybody else who wanted to? Oh yeah, Cynthia, please unmute. Let me try to unmute you. Let me find you on the list. Where are you? Where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay.
No, she's still muted.
Okay. First, I want to thank Jerry for mentioning about Jewish Voice for Peace, because I'm with the Nebraskan Solidarity for Palestinians group. And one of our members is what you described as Jewish Voice for Peace, is building bridges, and we just love him. I have a question for, whoops, where did he go? Okay, John, John Otto, you're the Episcopalian, I think you said?
No, he's Lutheran.
Well, he's what?
John, you're muted. He's our Lutheran voice, but he's
Oh,
with the
John is a
bishops.
Well,
Episcopal
I'm the
Bishops
one that
Committee.
put this meeting on the Nebraskan website. So
Oh, well, what I was just wanting to raise up, because I believe in what I'm hearing, Reverend Munther Isaac. And
yes,
he had the Jesus in the Rubble, and then I heard one of his presentations in England, to the British. And he really let him have it as far as the Western churches and complicity. And I just wanted to know if you knew him, but I thought you were talking about Episcopalian, so.
well, I'm on the Episcopal Bishops Committee, but I am a Lutheran, and yes, I know Isaac. I've met him. and some of the other Lutherans and Episcopalians there. Many people don't realize that both the Episcopal and Lutheran churches have been in Israel and Palestine for many years now. But they are playing a very significant role, although they're various minority groups, as even the Catholic Church is becoming a minority group and the Orthodox. But they do play a very significant role, and if we can support them in any way, I know they need to know that there's people here that are supporting what they're doing.
Yeah, okay, and I had a question from the film. I tried to get in on it before. It seemed to me that the film was bringing forward the idea that the Israeli use of their military power could have very precise targeting, and that's not what they're doing. One of the things I heard in another video was that they prefer not finding the group of Israeli, or the IDF. They prefer waiting until one of them goes home and then they bomb at the home. I wonder if anyone else has heard that. That's why they target actually the residents, because they're following, everybody's been marked up there so they know where everybody is what I'm told. And I wonder if anyone else had heard that.
I think you mean that they'd follow a Hamas person to his or her home,
Yes.
not an IDF person, right?
Correct. It's the IDF, the Israeli military that have everyone, they know where they all are. And if they're in a group, their preference for bombing is to wait till they go home because it's more targeted. But then they have to do destruction in the residents. It was one of the explanations for why the residents are being bombed.
Amy Goodman publicized that.
Oh, that where I heard it? Okay. Yeah. But it just seems like the military is not using this purpose of these very targeted bombs. They're using them indiscriminately. I don't know. Anyway, okay. I got my two things, Isaac Munther and precision bombing.
Steve, did you have another question?
Well, this is just, I'll make this quick. Jerry mentioned that it's complex, and I've been hearing that for about 15 to 20 years now. And I think a good argument can be made that once you stake out a position and you find some response, you ought to go with it and not worry about the people that are not willing to change. And I have reference to the behavior of the Columbia University faculty and administration this past week. They not only are having all these students arrested that were protesting in front of the school and maybe disrupting traffic in New York and all that, but they came out with this lengthy verbal written diatribe about how it was important to stop this anti-Semitism. So that just tells me the administration of Columbia University is they're either 15 years behind what's going on this thing, or they're just bought and paid for. Because I can't think of anything more irrelevant than to accuse people who are out protesting children dying in Gaza than calling them anti-Semites.
Pretty grim. I have one more comment. May I?
Please.
In September, the Presbyterian Church is bringing to Seattle in mid-September, and Ruth, I'll send you the schedule, one of my favorite Palestinians, whose name is Zugbi Zugbi.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes. Zugbi is the head of an organization called WEAM, the Palestine Conflict Resolution Center, and it's got a new name now. But he's coming here to speak, and I'll send you his schedule and hope that you can all see him, because he truly is an angel on the earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that, Jerry. That's great. Is there anyone else who would like to add anything or make a question? Well, thank you. Oh, yes, Mary Newman.
No, I hesitated to pop up again. I've said no. But one of the things that JVP is doing is they have it was canceled today. They have the 12 o'clock. Are you aware of that, Jerry? And it's really helpful because they have, it's called the Power Half Hour. And they basically track the timing of a particular issue that they feel would be effective to advocate for with Congress, and they make it possible for you to make telephone calls right then and there, or emails to your congressman. So it's a very, I think it's a very well done advocacy effort because they really target that particular issue that they think is the hot topic that we need to pursue with our legislature. You want to comment on that, Jerry?
Oh, I think that's great. I totally with you. I think they've been brave beyond brave, you know.
And you can sign up for it. You need to
Yeah,
and get a register for it. But once you're in, they send you daily notifications. So
they're great. Thank you again, everybody.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and Jerry, especially thank you so much for your thoughtful comments and information. This has been a very rich time once again. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Hope to see you all again.
In 2 weeks, we hope to have the film Blue Box for you. Blue Box is a new film, and it is about, I don't know if when you were growing up they had them, but when I was growing up, they had little blue boxes we could put our pennies or dimes or quarters in, I forget, in order to plant trees in Israel, planting trees in a land without trees or people, evidently. And it's the story of the man who masterminded that movement, and his granddaughter is looking into the history of it, and it's very revealing how it unfolds. So I hope that you'll be able to join us then. Just watch
Thank you.
the announcement.
Thank you, Ruth.
Sure, thank you.